Hi, I'm Brian Grant, and you're listening to On Time, the Brian Grant Foundation podcast about living with Parkinson's. If you want to know more about Brian Grant Foundation, go to briangrant.org.
Thank you for listening to this podcast, which is made possible by the generous support of our donors. Please consider supporting our programs to empower people impacted by Parkinson's to lead active and fulfilling lives by making a donation at briangrant.org. Welcome to On Time, a Parkinson's podcast. I'm Katrina Call, the Executive Director of the Brian Grant Foundation, and your host for this season where we're speaking with Brian's kids about their experiences navigating life with a parent with Parkinson's. Today, I'm joined by Jonavan and Maliah, Brian's middle children, to talk about how navigating Parkinson's has shaped them into the adults they are today. Welcome, Jonavan and Maliah.
Hi.
Hi.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for joining. So let's start by going back to a time when you first learned about your dad's diagnosis. How did you process it as children?
I would say that I don't know. We were pretty young when we found out. It was definitely scary, especially because we were so young. And at the time, at least I didn't know what Parkinson's was. I'd never even really heard of it. You know, I was glad to hear that it wasn't something fatal or anything, because it was really scary at the time. I remember him assuring us that it wasn't fatal, but it is a degenerative disease. So it was pretty frightening, especially because, you know, we seen him as this, you know, like this superhero, right? Nothing could take him down, but you know, to see him, he kept a strong face, but, you know, I definitely could tell that it was definitely bothering him, and that definitely bothered us. So it was pretty scary at first, for sure.
To second that, I literally was gonna say that, Jonavan, but I was gonna say, I mean, Jonavan, you were so young, so me and I were even younger, so I don't even think I understood at the time what it even meant, but I do remember just being reassured by him that, like, everything's going to be fine. And like Jonavan as well, like, I also, like, kind of see him as, like, this invincible superhero in my mind. So also being so young, I don't think there was ever a shift where I was like, my dad is this, this, and this, and now he got diagnosed with Parkinson's, and now there's just this, like, big shift. Like, that just never changed in my mind. So I think since I was so young, I feel like I've never looked at him any different since his diagnosis with Parkinson's. But it was definitely something that was scary, and I think I remember us all, like, being together and then him letting us know, or him being at the doctor's and coming back. Like, I don't have, like, a vivid memory, but I do remember, like, just being reassured that everything was going to be okay. But definitely scary as a kid to hear something, especially when you don't know much about it. And he didn't know very much about it either.
Yeah, so I know you were really young, Maliah, and I said the same in the last podcast. Jonavan, you were a little bit older. Did you fully understand what Parkinson's was?
No. After a while, after some time, I did. After doing research, and, you know, our dad also explained to us what it was and what it can do. I think a lot of my fear came from the fact that I had no idea what it was. You know, so when he first told us, you know, I'm alarms are going off. I'm like, my dad has a disease. Like, he's so young. These are the things that are popping up in my head. I have no idea what it is. You know, he assured us in the beginning that it's not fatal, but he also told us, you know, what it can do to a person's, you know, speech and motor skills, and that, you know, if it does progress, that he might not be the same. And so hearing something like that is scary. But as I would say that I slowly really understood, like, what it was and how dangerous it could be for him as I grew older and became more mature and, you know, learned about the disease more.
And how about you, Maliah? Do you remember what your understanding was at the time?
I think, to be completely transparent, like, I just thought, like, as a kid, it was just, you'd be like, my hand's just gonna shake a little, like, that's just what it was. And then I also just remember, like, he started taking us to a few different, when he started the foundation, like, we would go to a few different events. There was, like, a yoga event we went to, and a few other, like, there was, like a 5K walk that we would do. And, like, he would, like, meet, or we would meet a lot of members of the Parkinson's community. So I think that also helped me learn a little bit more, like, as I grew up, going to these events and being more involved in the foundation, and obviously him starting the foundation. But yeah, I think same with Jonavan, it just took more time to actually understand, because also my dad is just he's not as serious. He's very lighthearted, and that's exactly how I am. Like, we are the exact same. So, like, even having maybe like scary or tough conversations, it was always in like a reassuring way that like everything's fine, really nothing's gonna change. Like, and his personality, like, he's still the same person. So I think there it is, even like now as an adult, like, I don't look at him any different, but there was a point, like as Jonathan said, like, growing up, doing a little bit more research and understanding what it is now and what it could be. That's probably what scares me the most. But yeah, I don't know if that answered your question.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's interesting because a lot of what you're saying resonates with what we talked with Anaya and Jaden about last week. So I'm wondering, were there any specific moments or memories that stand out from those early days after you learned about his diagnosis?
Yeah, I actually do have one that I always think about when I think about when he first got Parkinson's. I remember because his tremor at first it wasn't very noticeable, but like Malia was saying, like, he really tried to take the stress off of us because it is a stressful thing, and he's just so humorous, and he just tries to distract us from the fact that he had Parkinson's. I remember we would always watch movies with him, sit on the couch. He loves his movies, so do we. And I remember, like, sometimes he would notice that we're paying attention to his tremor, which it wasn't super noticeable at the time, but sometimes we'd notice it. And um, to take that off our minds, he would start snapping or start talking to us about something to distract us from that. And as a kid, I didn't really appreciate that or understand that, but as an adult, I really appreciate that because it was stressful. It was scary. We wouldn't even. Sometimes I would forget that he even has Parkinson's until I see the tremor. And then I really start thinking about it. I start to stress about it, get more scared about it. And he would just always, he would always try to take our minds off of it in any little way he could, making music with his hands. He always loved doing that, or snapping.
Yeah, I would say that. Yeah, he always did like, I think that was a big priority for him, is his a big priority for him is just always making sure his kids are okay. But I do remember, like, one point at one point, like, us sitting on the couch, and I think he was trying to open something or like get his meds out of like the little cube. And like, I could notice him struggling. So I was like, no, I want to help you. Like, I'm going to grab them for you. And I think that was like the first time I was like, can I help you? Can I do this for you? And like, I think that's when it kind of hit, where it was like, okay, like, now that I'm growing up, like, I can be there to support you. Like, like, you don't always need to like feel like you need to cover something up to like keep us less stressed, if that makes sense. But I think that was something I vividly remember, is like him kind of struggling to open like this like medicine, wherever he keeps like his medicine. and me being like, can I help you with that? Because his hands were shaking.
So tell me, did your dad's diagnosis change the way you saw or interacted with him?
No, but I would say that it definitely made me aware to the fact that, I should be trying to help him out more. But like I said, he just lives life like, sometimes he lives life like he didn't even have it. So I wouldn't say that we treated him all that different as kids. Definitely tried to help him out whenever we could, but he was just always catching us with jokes and trying to stay active, trying to bring us out to do stuff. So it didn't really I wouldn't say it did that much, but definitely made me aware of the fact that we got to try to help him out a little bit. But yeah, he just tries to live life like he doesn't even have it.
Yeah, I would definitely say the same, Jonavan. I did not. I don't see him any different than I did before. I was also so young, so I don't even really remember my dad before his diagnosis, to be honest. And yeah, he's always kind of like, we've always grown up like kind of as if he didn't really even have it. But I think there are different points like within growing up when we got older where I think he would maybe use like humor as a coping mechanism for him and like never ever wanted us to be worried. So I think he tried to deal with maybe like the mental health effects of like maybe like dealing with this disease like kind of internally. I think the only time where I did start to see him different is when like I actually got older and could have like candid, honest, open conversations with him, because I think we are all super close. But I think I've always been a very honest person with him, and like I will tell him something. Like we go back and forth like super honest with each other. So I think now me being more of an adult, like he can open up and tell me how he was feeling and how this actually has impacted him and like the way he sees himself, which are things that like I didn't even think of up until like maybe the past few years is when like I actually really started to realize like how this has impacted him internally. Because growing up, he really like did not want us to think of him any different or worry about him. So yeah, I think now is as an adult, like having those conversations with him, we're learning a lot more.
So it sounds like you are able to talk to your dad about Parkinson's. Both of you are able to talk to your dad about Parkinson's today. You have honest conversations. Is that right?
Yeah.
And as you've had this new understanding of what was happening for your dad when you were kids, how has that affected you? How has that changed your understanding of Parkinson's?
I would say that it's become a lot more serious for us now, understanding the effects of what it can do, what it has done to him, and it just it really has me feeling a deep sense of sympathy for everybody who has been diagnosed with Parkinson's and who struggles with this, because it's not easy. And he's done a really great job at trying to keep the load off us, the stress off us, and make sure that we know that everything's going to be all right. But it's deep down, somebody with Parkinson's, they're going through a lot of struggle, and there's already a lot of struggle in everybody's lives, things that we struggle with. And Parkinson's it's huge. The effects that it can have on somebody's mental and physical is crazy. So I definitely have a lot of sympathy for everybody who's been diagnosed with Parkinson's.
How about you, Maliah? How has it kind of changed your understanding of Parkinson's?
Yeah, I think exactly what Jonavan said. It definitely opened my eyes. And one, I think as a daughter and going through, like being in high school and like going through that like teenage era of being kind of a little bit of a brat, to be honest, I think it made me way more empathetic of my dad and like what he deals with and what he goes through. And it also just made it way more like serious. And not that it wasn't real before, but like reality does set in at some point when you like really understand like what this does to a person and how they're feeling, no matter who they are. So yeah, same as Jonathan, makes me feel very sympathetic for those who are dealing with this. And also, you know, I think for me personally, I'm not someone to like, I don't really talk about like struggles or like things that we may have dealt with and like how we feel. So I think I'm always curious to know like what other people's families have felt throughout this process for them too. But yeah, definitely feel very sympathetic, and it is a really serious topic. And I think before there was like a lot of not humor in the topic, but just to keep us less stressed. But I think now as adults, like it's something that we need to take serious and like do everything we can as his kids to now support him, because we've grown up always being supported by him and like being taken care of. So I think it's time for us to just take care of him now that we're adults.
So, speaking of being an adult, how has having a parent with Parkinson's shaped you as adults?
I think, well, I think there's just lessons that I've learned from my dad, regardless of having him, like having a parent with Parkinson's. I think one, you never know what people are dealing with. You never know like what people are struggling with. It's not your place to judge other people, but also like I think that we all care for others very deeply, and I think that is something we learned from our dad. But it's also just made me more a lot more grateful and like do not take anything for granted. Just being very blessed and grateful to live the lives that we live. And like we have such a strong support system around us that like not very many people are fortunate to have. Like we are all so close and there for each other. So I think just not being able to take anything for granted, and also like being appreciative of like my health, and also being a little bit more serious and like making the right decisions to keep me healthy moving forward in the future, because that's not something that had been a very big priority for me as a kid, obviously.
How about you, Jonavan?
Yeah, Maliah basically summed it up. Yeah, I would say that it definitely has taught me to be a lot more appreciative of being in good health, and definitely I would say that it's definitely made me be aware of how how good we have it, because living with Parkinson's is, well, I mean, we've seen it firsthand what it can do. So um, just taking care of ourselves, and taking care of our loved ones, and anybody who's suffering through any sort of illness or disease. Um, and also, like Maliah said, not judging anybody, and trying to be really understanding of what somebody's going through. Because with my dad's Parkinson's, there were times when we didn't understand, why he would do certain things, or why he would feel a certain way. And growing up, understanding that now, at the time would be like, oh, what's going on with him? But now that we understand, the situation and what he's been through, what he's going through, it's taught me to also just be a lot more understanding.
So, looking back, is there anything you wish you had known or done differently as a child or a teenager?
Yes. I wish that, I mean, honestly, like I don't know how I could have, I think maybe just knowing what I know now, I wish that I would have been more serious or maybe expressed more of an appreciation for my father as a kid, because he's just always been like he's just always put his kids in front of himself at all times. So that was just like me being like, that's just how I grew up, and I just didn't understand anything that he was going through at all. So I think definitely looking back, I wish I took more time to be more appreciative of everything, because we truly are so privileged to have him as our dad, and like to grow up the way we did, on top of the fact that he's been fighting such a hard battle and going through all these hardships in his life, but always making sure that we had a normal childhood, that like everything was going to be all right for his kids. I wish that as a kid I could maybe acknowledge that a bit more. But I mean, we all have such a close relationship with him. I think it's funny now, like I'll call him just for fun and he'll be like, "Did you mean to call me? Hello? What? Like, what's happening?" And I'm like, I'm just calling to tell you I love you, and what are you doing? Or what do you need? Are you in trouble? Like, it's like just things like that. I'm like, man, I wish like as a kid, I did that more, but very appreciative of him. And I think now as adults, like everything's different. So I think that would definitely be something I could maybe change.
How about you, Jonavan?
Yeah, I would say same. Definitely be more appreciative of the things that he did. He really did a lot for us, especially going through what he went through with Parkinson's. So being more appreciative, and also being more helpful, right? Because a lot of the times, we forget that he even has Parkinson's, and so yeah, being more helpful with anything that he needs, or even things that he may feel like he doesn't need, and also definitely appreciating those times when we were always out and active, out and about, because as somebody gets older, especially with Parkinson's, that really slows down a lot. So yeah, appreciation and being more present. I wish now that I'm an adult, those are the things that I wish I could change.
So what are your hopes for your dad now?
I've got a lot of hopes. I feel like he's in like this great era where he's like his confidence is coming up. Like he's like in this exciting chapter in his life where he's starting to make more decisions for himself and not worry about his kids so much. Cause I mean, we are, at least his 4 older kids are like, we are adults. Like we can handle our problems on our own. So I think my hopes for him is that he prioritizes himself a little bit more and stops worrying about other people so much, and does things that he genuinely enjoys, and also like pushes himself out of his comfort zone, because I think when we have a lot of conversation, I think he doesn't realize like how cool of a person he really is, and like all of the things that like he's done. I don't think it registers to him, and I think sometimes he lets his, not insecurities, I don't want to call him insecure, but like I think his confidence, like sometimes he lacks confidence in like taking that next step and like putting himself out there to the world. I think he gets shy, so I really hope that he can like I hope that he can like say yes to more opportunities that he's been wanting to do, and feeling more confident within himself to go do them.
How about you, Jonavan?
Yeah, I agree. I would say one of my hopes for sure is for him to just kind of really own his confidence more. I mean, he is already very confident, but just for him to own it more, and to be less self-conscious, because he has nothing to be self-conscious about. And also for him to just be happy. I just want him to be happy and live life for him, because honestly, he's done more than enough for a lot of different people. He needs to, I would say, I really hope that he just finds more happiness than he already has, and confidence, and also hope for continuing good health, and to just stay active as well. And my number one hope would be for him to, have his goal met, which is to, have this foundation have really contributed to a cure or different a means of really curbing the symptoms for Parkinson's.
Well, thank you guys so much for joining us today. I really appreciate your taking the time this morning.
Thank you for having us.
Thanks for having us.
And thank you for tuning into this episode. Join us next week for our final episode in the series, where we'll be talking with Brian's youngest kids about their dad's diagnosis.
The Brian Grant Foundation empowers people impacted by Parkinson's to lead active and fulfilling lives. Help support our efforts at briangrant.org. A special thank you to Raphael Sadiq for providing the music for this podcast. This podcast is produced by Brian Griggs. Learn more at griggsproductions.com.